Hello friends, welcome to Kamath Astrology. Today's topic is major challenges for India post the Saturn transit in the sign of Pisces or Mean starting 29th March 2025. So on 29th March 2025, Saturn moves from Aquarius into the sign of Pisces or Mean, and we will see why this brings major challenges to India. Now on the screen you can see two charts. The left hand side chart is the transit chart on 30th March 2025. So on 29th March 2025, Saturn, shown by the green circle, has moved into the sign of Pisces. On the same day, there is a solar eclipse, and you can see almost 7 planets combined in the sign of Pisces. So I made a separate video earlier explaining what is going to be the impact on the world and what kind of problems will come in that time frame across the world. But in this video, I am going to focus on India. Now the right hand side chart is the natal chart of independent India. And if you see this chart, India has the Taurus ascendant or Vrishab Lagna rising when independent India was formed. Now have a look at the left hand side chart, that is the transit chart. Based on the natal chart, India's ascendant is the Taurus ascendant. So we'll use the same ascendant in the transit chart. This means that after 29th March 2025, when Saturn moves into Pisces, it puts its third aspect on the Taurus ascendant. Now what is the ascendant or the first house? It represents the physical body. It represents the physical self for an individual. But for a nation, what does it represent? It represents the nation's image. It represents the public's health, and Saturn putting its aspect on the first house shows that India's national image can undergo certain challenges in this time period. The health of the public can face certain challenges in this time period. There could be a disease that could affect people at large in this time period. But till May 2025, Jupiter is present in the sign of Taurus. So still it offers a good amount of protection. Saturn's malefic aspect is still largely under control because of Jupiter's presence in the Taurus ascendant. Now, which house is Saturn transiting from the perspective of India's Taurus ascendant? It is the 11th house. Pisces becomes the 11th house in India's horoscope. So, what is the 11th house all about? It is about gains, it is about your friend circle, it is about your desires and aspirations. It is also about large organizations, social work. All these things come under the domain of the 11th house. Now think from a nation's perspective, what could the 11th house indicate? It definitely indicates economic policies, it indicates diplomacy, it indicates alliances. And now because Saturn has come into the 11th house, it is going to bring restrictions in these areas. So our alliances with foreign partners may undergo lot of stress in this time period. Why foreign partners? Because Pisces is the natural 12th house of the zodiac, which represents foreigners. So in short, these restrictions can come in the form of trade sanctions, restrictions, strict government policies, higher taxes. All this is seen by the presence of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And you can also see a cluster of other planets present in the sign of Pisces. This indicates a lot of confusion. Imagine too many people being placed in one room with different opinions. Then there is bound to be a clash of ideals. So definitely government policies become stricter, taxation becomes stricter, alliances with foreign countries, those come under stress. Restrictions in the form of sanctions, etc., can come in this time period on India. Large organizations which are represented by the 11th house, they may also face lot of challenges in this time period due to the stricter trade policies, stricter government regulations, stricter taxation rules. Now, Saturn is aspecting the sign of Taurus, which is India's ascendant. Taurus also represents finances and wealth of the nation. So, when Saturn puts his aspect on Taurus, it means the people of India will face lot of financial restrictions in this time period. Government could come up with stricter rules in this time period, stricter economic regulations. And Jupiter, the 8th lord, is right now transiting Taurus. So these rules can come in suddenly. While there is growth, there is also a lot of restrictions being placed by the government is what is seen. Now Taurus is the natural second house of the zodiac belt, which represents finances and banking. And Saturn's aspect here shows that banks can face liquidity crunch. Banks can face lot of problems in this time period. Financial institutions can face lot of challenges in this time period. Jupiter is present here till May. So there is good financial guidance received in this time period. But Saturn's aspect here in the long term creates lot of financial problems for the banking sector. Now one more interesting thing is Saturn puts the 7th aspect on the sign of Virgo or Kanya. Mars also puts its 4th aspect on the sign of Virgo or Kanya. And Virgo is the sign of disputes. It is the sign of conflicts. It is the sign of healing. It is the sign of debates and protests. And what is the 5th house? 5th house represents children. 5th house represents your investments. So from a nation's perspective, 5th house represents the youth present in the nation and also the stock market. It also represents creativity of the nation. Now when Saturn aspects the sign of Virgo, which is already the sign of conflicts and protests, it shows that the youth of this country can go into a protest mode due to the lack of employment or employment related issues. So mass protest movements by the youth can be seen in this time period. Mars aspecting the sign of Virgo can further aggravate the conflicts. Remember, any house that receives simultaneous aspect of Saturn and Mars, that house always experiences challenges. And Virgo, as I said, is the sign of conflicts, protests, debates. So definitely it shows the youth of this country protesting against employment related issues or other issues that may be bothering them. The 5th house is also the stock market. The simultaneous aspect of Mars and Saturn on the 5th house can cause severe stock market fluctuations, sudden downfalls in several stocks, and some kind of crash. Now, one more important transit will happen around May 18th, 2025. That is Rahu and Ketu change signs. Rahu moves into Aquarius. Ketu moves into Leo. So what is Leo now? Leo is the 4th house in India's natal chart. Leo is the sign of leadership. It is the sign of royalty. It is the sign representing the king. Being India's fourth house, it represents the homeland, it represents the security of the homeland. And when Ketu is present here, terrorist activities can increase in this time period. So, sudden terror attacks can happen in India around the mid of this year, that is around the July August time frame. Now, fourth house represents the home, it represents real estate. So, from a nation's perspective, this fourth house represents homeland security, it represents the real estate sector. And with Ketu here, Ketu is about leaving things, it is about losing things. So, this means the real estate sector can come down drastically in this time period. You will see lot of fluctuations in the real estate sector in this time period. Fourth house also represents agriculture. So, in this time period, the agriculture sector, the real estate sector, all these sectors will undergo a downfall. There could be a real estate crash or lot of problems coming in the real estate sector in this time period when Ketu moves into the sign of Leo, that is after May 18th, 2025. Now, Virgo also represents the stock market in this case because it is the fifth house in India's horoscope. And Saturn's aspect on the fifth house will create fluctuations in the stock market. The stock market will be very volatile and certain scams related to the stock market can suddenly come out to the fore. So a big scam like the Harshad Mehta scam in 1992, that type of scam can suddenly come up in this time period. Now Leo, like I explained, is the sign of leadership. And when Ketu comes in Leo, leadership changes or leadership related struggles will be seen. So in the political sector or in the current ruling government, you will see lot of leadership changes once Ketu moves into the sign of Leo. You can also understand this by looking at Rahu's position. See, when Ketu moves into Leo, Rahu is going to move into Aquarius. Aquarius is the natural 10th house in India's horoscope. 10th house is what? 10th house is about karma. It is about your profession. It is about career. From a nation's perspective, 10th house is about the government policies, the government structure, the government hierarchy. And what is Rahu? Rahu is uncertainty. Rahu is obsession. Rahu is a rebel who breaks rules. Rahu is someone unconventional. So unconventional leadership can be seen in this time period. Rahu brings a lot of uncertainty in the government in this time period with respect to policies in this time period. And Rahu in the 10th house can show scams in the political leadership of the country, scams exposing large politicians, large businessmen in this time period. Now, some of you may wonder why I am saying about scam. See, what is Rahu? Rahu is about cheating also. 10th house is the work which we are doing. So, the work which the nation is doing. Aquarius represents large groups, large organizations, large hierarchical structures. And Rahu here represents a leader. So, scams due to the unconventional leadership or false leadership or shadow leadership can come out in this time period. Ultimately, Rahu is a shadow planet and it gives unconventional results, it behaves erratically, and a lot of scams come out wherever Rahu is present. But Rahu in the sign of Aquarius in 10th house is good for technology. So IT companies or unconventional technologies like AI, machine learning, through those gains can be realized in India in this time period. So companies related to the IT sector, mainly those operating in artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud technologies, those companies could profit in this time period is what it shows. But eventually, whatever gains Rahu gives, those are all shadowy gains, may not come through the right means. And eventually, in the long run, this could translate into a loss, though in short term, it looks like a great benefit. So, how does this translate into a loss in the long run? You can see Saturn is present for 2.5 years in the sign of Pisces. Saturn is the ruler of the 10th house in India's chart, going into the sign of losses, that is Pisces. So, it shows job losses due to this AI, due to this machine learning, or due to this cloud technologies, advancement in the technical sector. So while large organizations might benefit due to advances in technology, the general public will suffer from job losses and unemployment issues in this time period. Now, where does Saturn's 10th aspect fall? It falls on the sign of Sagittarius or Dhanu, which is the bottom left square in the left hand side chart. Mars's aspect also falls on this sign. So, this is the 8th house in India's horoscope. 8th house is the house of longevity. It is the house of sudden events. It is the house of accidents. And Sagittarius is a sign which represents principles, which represents policies, which shows temples, which shows ancestral land, which shows religious beliefs. So this combined aspect of Saturn and Mars here could indicate lot of struggles in India due to religious differences, due to religious clashes. And you could see situations like riots due to religious clashes in India. Once Mars moves into Gemini, Mars is already in Gemini after January 21st, but Saturn will take time to enter Pisces. He will enter Pisces on 29th March. So after this time, you could see lot of possibilities of religious riots in India in this time period. Now, one more very important thing. Currently, India is still undergoing the Moon Mahadasha. Around September of 2025, this Moon Mahadasha ends and Mangal Mahadasha starts. So, Mangal or Mars Mahadasha indicates war-like situations, and during the Mars Mahadasha, a person has to fight. So, in the Mahadasha of Mars for India, India will also have to fight a war. If you see natal India's horoscope, the third house of Cancer is highly activated. That is why during the partition, India had to face a lot of problems. Many people lost their lives due to the partition and the riots that followed. Now, Mars is in Gemini. In the natal chart also, Mars was in Gemini when independent India was formed. And once Ketu transits into the 4th house of Leo in India's chart, around the July to September time frame, India could fight a war with Pakistan or China. This could be to get back its old territories like POK, or due to the Chinese creating a problem in this time period. So this is seen around July to September of 2025 based on my astrological analysis. So to conclude, the years 2025-2026 will be extremely challenging for India. While there could be growth in certain sectors, the banking sector, the agriculture sector, real estate sector, those could suffer huge losses in the times ahead. Mars in Gemini in the 2nd house from India's ascendant shows that the government will have to increase its defense expenditure, and Mars here post 21st January 2025 shows the possibility of cyber attacks on India's critical infrastructure by certain foreign entities. So, in short, the years 2025 2026 they show a period of struggle in India. Certain sectors in India, such as the IT sector, might benefit slightly, but there could be huge job losses, disruption in lot of sectors, and especially I see the real estate sector, agriculture sector suffering a lot in these 2 years. So 2025 2026 could see youth protests, natural disasters due to Ketu in Leo. However, Saturn does give long term stability. So after a few years, stability will definitely come to India. So that's all from my end. If you like this video, do mark it as liked on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. You can reach us through our email ID astrosevaworld@yahoo.com or through our website astroseva.tripod.com. So friends, thanks a lot. Bye. Take care and stay safe.